Now, on the 9/11 attack on America, which I promised to speak on, because John Kerry mentioned it in his speech, I actually decoded it in 2016, when John Kerry made that his speech, So I'm going to read exactly the decode as I wrote it in that 2016. So it may equally reflect, some of the past events as in the present tense. So you have to bear with me. It may call Obama, reflect Obama as still the serving president of America, when Obama have already served and left. So I'm going to read it exactly as it was, as I wrote it, as I decoded it in 2016. So you have to bear with me. And this is a special edition dedicated to the victims of 9/11 attack in the United States of America. May their souls rest in peace. That is how I started it. September 11, 2016 marked the 15th anniversary of that dastardly act committed by a gang of evil men. And I dedicate this piece to the memory of those innocent men and women, children, even unborn, in their mother's wombs, that died on that very sad day. Also to the injured and the families of all those who lost their lives to the evil gang that are still presently behind all the evil activities happening all over the world today. May the good Lord grant all those precious souls that died in that attack peace and continue to energize and strengthen their loved ones who continue to bear the pain of the loss of their dear ones. 15 years is time enough to expose their killers, to enable their souls rest in peace, which we are going to do in this piece. Now, to the glory of our Lord and God, Jesus Christ. By Chinyere Ezeogo. Now, back to U.S. Secretary of State, John Kerry's speech at Sokoto. It continues. I'm quoting John Kerry. This is what he said on the 2/11, on the September 11 attack. He said, "Now we have learned a lot about extremism in the last years. We obviously have been consumed by the fight against it since 2001, when out of the blue, the attack in New York took place." End of quote. Then my decode. Now, right up on the September 11 attack. The September 11, 2001, otherwise known as 9/11 terrorist attack on America, did not suddenly happen like a thunderbolt or out of the blue, as John Kerry claimed. The attack that has been variously described as the darkest day in American recent history, that claimed the life of over 3,000 people, with more than 6,000 people injured, was a carefully planned and well-executed attack. September 11, 2016 marked the 15th anniversary of that dastardly act committed by a gang of evil men, and I dedicate this piece to the memory of those innocent men and women, children, even unborn in their mother's womb, that died on that very sad day. Also to the injured and the families of all those who lost their lives to the evil gang that are still presently behind all the evil activities happening all over the world today. May the good Lord grant all those precious souls that died in that attack peace and continue to energize and strengthen their loved ones who continue to bear the pain of the loss of their dear ones. This is of international consequence. 15 years, remember it's written in 2016. 15 years is time enough to expose their killers, to enable their souls rest in peace, which we are going to do in this piece now. Above all, as another election draws nigh in America, may the good Lord open the eyes of American electors to enable them see the serpent that is in the so-called Democratic Party of America and this presidential flag bearer, Hillary Clinton, otherwise the party I refer as the demon-possessed Party of America, that will destroy the world if allowed again to come to power. Prior to the 9/11 attack on America, there was a sudden fall in the aviation stock exchange market. Who were the gang responsible for divestment from the aviation stock exchange market prior to the attack? And why did they suddenly, out of the blue, sell their shares in the aviation industry then? I think that is a good place to start their investigation, as they are made to tell us what they know about the impending attack that made them sell off their shares. Exactly what they have replicated in their impending Holocaust that they have arranged in Nigeria, especially against the people of the former Eastern region, as America's United Airlines has withdrawn their service from Nigeria, obviously knowing what is going to happen in Nigeria in a short while. I told you that thing was stopped because Trump won that election. The then incumbent President George Bush was told first about the 9/11 attack while he was visiting a school in Sarasota, Florida, in the United States of America. According to him then, he caught a glimpse of the horror on television as he flew to a secure base in Air Force One. His first reaction when he heard about it without a glimpse from television was to find the culprits and make them pay. His words then, I'm quoting Bush, "My blood was boiling. We were going to find out who did this and kick their ass," he says. But later the realization of the scale of what had happened to his fellow countrymen and the extent of their loss turned on him, and he exclaimed, and I quote him, "An enemy has struck our capital for the first time since the War of 1812. In a single morning, the purpose of my presidency has grown clear: to protect our people and defend our freedom that had come under attack." End of quote. Of the victims, Bush had words for them. He says, "I felt the agony and despair. I had the most powerful job in the world, yet I felt powerless to help them." End of quote. With more reports of attack coming in, President Bush first thought, according to him, and I'm quoting him, "My God, when is this going to end?" End of quote. It wasn't until he arrived at the White House that the full reality of what had taken place finally hit him. And I'm quoting him. This is what he said. I looked out of an abandoned lockdown Washington. In the distances, I saw smoke rising from the Pentagon. The symbol of our military might was smoldering. I was struck by how scared and ruthless the Aquila pilot must have been in order to fly directly into the low-lying building. That night, sleep did not come easily. My mind replayed the images of the day, the plane hitting the building, the towers crumbling, and the Pentagon in flames. I thought of the grave so many families must be falling. I also thought about the heroism the flight attendants on the hijacked planes who calmly called supervisors to report their status, and the first responders who raced toward the flame at the World Trade Center. End of quote. The then President George Bush recalled. Still recalling his experience of that terrible day, he says that just as he was dozing off, a figure appeared at that doorway, breathing heavily, and in what proved to be a false alarm, shouted, "The White House is under attack, let's go!" I thought Laura would have to move fast. She didn't have time to put in her contact lenses, so she headed on to me. I grabbed her ropes and guided her with one arm while I scooped up Benny, our Scottish terrier, with the other. That end of quote. That was exactly the former United States of America President George Bush recall of the experience on the day of the 9/11 attack in America in 2001. As he rightly noted, the terrorists were highly scared. This is my own write-up. I applied back to this experience of the then President Bush because the same evil gang are at it today. The then President Bush promised to find out who did the attack on America and make him pay, which I still think neither him nor any of his successors has been able to do that, which is what I will help achieve in this piece, because almost 14 years later, this same criminal, abominable gang kidnapped 223 female students from GS Government College, Chibok, on 14th of April 2014, out of which nearly 219 Chibok abducted female students are still missing to date until recently when they exchanged with one of the girls for their foot soldiers, and is very important on this 15th anniversary remembrance of the 9/11 attack to expose this gang once and for all for the world to see. So I'm equally attributing it, dedicating it to the kidnap of the Chibok girls too. I will not dwell much on this since I had already articulated what happened then in the past series of this ongoing narration. The suffices that I reproduced part of a piece I wrote in 2001 when the incident took place, published in many local journals, entitled "Message of an 11th Hour Tragedy." The other papers published it, like National Interest, newspaper, treasure magazines, and quite a lot of local journals gave coverage of my piece then. Now, quoting from part 1 of the publication of Anchor newspaper of October 11, 2001. Anything I do, I give you references. my own publication, the paper that published it, the first part. I'm quoting from Anchor newspaper, October 11, 2001. I wrote among other things then, and I'm quoting myself from that paper, that the sheer depth of intellectual ability displayed in that most abominable as regards the conception of the idea speaks for itself. Selection of targets, training and retraining of personnel involved, resources involved, access to classify critical scientific and security information involved to maintain secrecy, and very critical evidences both before and after the act seriously show that we are dealing with a group, an evil organization that is much higher, with access to unlimited information and unhindered movement of persons around the globe, access to unlimited resources, an organization that can be everywhere and yet nowhere at the same time, almost as if we are dealing with extraterrestrial UFOs. Bin Laden and co. do not possess the sophistication and other necessary wherewithal to undertake such a complex assignment, not when the motivation is to force the United States of America to withdraw its military presence from the Middle East and Gulf, particularly Saudi Arabia. They are not that and should know such an act will boomerang against them. That's the end of my write-up on the part 1 that was published. This is exactly what the same evil gang reenacted almost 14 years later in the Chibok girls' abduction, as they ensured their most in the government of the then President Goodluck Ebele Jonathan, continued to confuse the then President and some honest members that they saw headquarters of their external collaborators of the so-called Boko Haram terrorists that were used for the operation that aided them to successfully move away with the abducted girls at that very critical stage of the operation before they can settle down. The then President Jonathan's security chief denounced the report and discouraged President Jonathan from the report, and a critical lead was lost as it was not pursued. Still on my piece on the 9/11 attack, when it occurred, we have seen how the then President Bush blood was boiling to kick somebody's ass. We want to bomb them, and so on and so forth. He said, I wrote in that piece then, and I'm quoting what I wrote, in order to avoid the imminent specter of the Holocaust that will be the backlash of Americans' intention to invade Afghanistan in respect of the assumed prime suspect, Osama bin Laden, it is a plan from the deepest pit of hell, conceived and executed by the brightest negative fundamental intellectual extremists. Those are the same gang we are facing today. The very devil second in command in human form. The actual motive of the attack on the symbolic locations of the World Trade Center, Pentagon, and so on and so forth is to precipitate a revenge to make President Bush do exactly what he intends to do now. That is, we're going to bomb someone, we've got to feel good, we've got to show them we can be pushed around, all of which will be extremely big. Immediately President Bush does that, he will be targeted for assassination. Not by those who will bomb, but by the unseen shadowy figure lurking behind to take advantage of the milieu that will ensue. That unseen shadowy figure is behind all the bombings and confusion and still more horrendous acts to come in other guises in America and other parts of the world. End of my quote. That was way back in 2001 when that piece was written. Nearly 14 years later, on 14th of April 2014, that unseen shadowy figure lurking behind that was responsible for the 9/11 attack also kidnapped the Chibok girls, just as he used Bin Laden and Al-Qaeda in the 9/11 attack on America. Nearly 15 years later, rerun the same system and used the same Al-Qaeda in the form of Boko Haram and Abubakar Shekau as four guys while still hiding behind the curtain we are going to tear up today and reveal his real face. In the same piece I wrote in 2001, that is in the paper publications that the newspaper published for me, I tell you among other things that, and I'm quoting from that publication, has it ever occurred to anyone that neither Osama bin Laden nor the Taliban government of Afghanistan had the motive to undertake such a negative act? This was an act committed by a gang with a lot for nihilistic power and passion for cruel display. Does the world not realize that we have all entered an emergency situation? Do the security department like the CIA, BVI, and so on and so forth realize the full depth of the extraordinary situation they are confronted with globally? They are dealing with an event and other series of action to come, pre-planned over so many years and put in the cooler to be brought into operation as and when due. The anachronistic nature of the 11-day tragedy is the main reason why they could not find the needed vital clues being searched for today. All the necessary evidences to serve as pointers have carefully been eliminated and buried in the past. End of my write-up in the newspapers in 2001. Then, continuing, exactly with the Chibok girls' abduction, which was one of the pre-planned acts put in the cooler that was brought into operation on April 14, 2014, when its time was due to be acted upon. The anachronistic nature of the Chibok girls kidnapped by the same gang was the reason why we are where we are on their rescue. Does the day about after Amajiri Boko Haram, if they are actually the ones doing all this, have the intellectual ability, resources, and so on and so forth to successfully abduct and successfully warehouse such a large number of human cargo for as long as they have done since 2014 to date? The same sophistication and wherewithal applied in the sources of the attack on American 9/11, even more we apply in the kidnap of the Chibok girls and undertaken by exactly the same gang. Now, still in my decode, how and why I got involved and went after this evil gang. My motivation, how I started this incursion into activism, When Chief M.K. Abiola was assassinated by this same evil organization and his very beautiful wife Kudirat assassinated too, Abiola's demise stirred up something deep inside me and eventually galvanized my passion into activism. I became an activist and I vowed to him at one of those condolence registers opened at Alodi Apapa Axis of Lagos, as in so many places, then to unveil his killers, no matter what it will cost me, even though I do not know any of the Abiola, or had never had any relationship, business or otherwise, with any Abiolas of this world. The sheer effrontery of that man's assassination was not only an affront, but a necessary impetus that galvanized me into action. Moreover, against the situation of the people of the former Eastern region in Nigeria, the childhood reflection and memories of the Biafra Nigerian War, and the growing up process of a careful study of roles individuals played in that Oriental massacre and what the world was really all about, especially as it relates to the issues of life or art. Does God really exist? I asked myself. I needed a convincing answer to that inquisitiveness. I saw the unequal upside-down system that exists in Nigeria. They drawn line barrier against the Igbos, no matter how hard they try. There is a level they cannot cross. The former Minister of Education during the era of former President Olusegun Obasanjo summed it up somehow while giving evidence at a public hearing by the Senate Committee on Ethics, Code of Conduct and Public Performance on the 55 million naira bribe for budget scandal on Monday, April 11, 2005, made the following observation when he was asked to name those present at Senator Adihe's house when he took the money with his heirs to the committee's members. He said it will be difficult to recall everybody's face, and I'm quoting him. These are some of the things, traumatic experiences I've had in Nigeria that galvanized me into activism. He said it will be difficult to recall everybody's face. I'm quoting him. The point is that I cannot easily recall. There has been a few meetings within a few days. He said, and he went on to tell the committee that he never thought his action would turn out to be so unpleasant to a lot of people, his words. And I'm quoting. In the circumstances, one cannot but feel unhappy about the turn of events, but at that time it was happening, I am sure neither the distinguished senators nor myself and honorable members concerned thought of any possible repercussions of the type we are now witnessing. So to that extent, one would be worried. I also feel unhappy that most of it has been exaggerated, misrepresented. I have been presented as a thief, somebody who stole money, and somebody who diverted money, or somebody who gave a bribe. But the entire circumstances did not suggest anything like that. That is just the point. So that could be a source of regret. But again, in future, we try to eliminate all those from government and government practices then of course everybody would say they wouldn't do it again. But I'm afraid that what we are facing is so selective and is so discriminating that it does not offer any hope. Even as we are speaking, we are told that there are other ministers and ministers that does similar things. But mine was a subject of a broadcast. Why shouldn't I regret it? I have been in public life for more than 40 years. I have been educated and made to serve in various capacities in universities and so on in government, and this did not happen before. So I regret it. Why not? I'm human. Can you imagine? End of quote. After the anti-corruption train part on the move then called the duo of Senate President Adolphus Mwabara and Professor Fabian Osuji, all Igbos, he graded to an automatic stop and never moved again till date, as Professor Osuji prophesied. They are still running the same system today. Anything that happens in Nigeria, they only pick out the Igbos as sacrificial lambs, and when they deal with them, that is the end of the matter. That is the same system that they are running to today, engineered by the Americans, you know. Still reading from my decode. What happened to Honorable Maurice Ibekwe compared to Honorable Farouk Lawal? Go and look at Lawal. He's still a free man till today. That is case, the case is still there, not even tried. And this was a man who was in exactly the same situation with Maurice Ibekwe as an honorable member of the Federal House of Representatives. Now look at it. What happened to Honorable Maurice Ibekwe compared to Honorable Farouk Lawal in the $500,000 bribe scandal with Otedola? Nothing to today. Otedola is a free man. Lawal is a free man. If he did they were Igbo, that Otedola business would have been granted to today. Look at that, they are handling people like, and who is this? A lot of Igbo businessmen, both this one from, what do they call him? Obai Fanyo Band, all of that. They were the same people who were doing subsidy with Otedola and all that. But his own case was singled out. Then Otedola and all of them, all the other Yorubas and the Hausas who were involved in the same thing. What happened? They are working for it. What happened to Honorable Maurice Ibekwe compared to Honorable Farouk Lawal in the $500,000 bribe scandal with Otedola? What happened to Dr. Chubu Akadibo in the street light contract scandal compared to the budget padding involving the Speaker of the House of Representatives, Honorable Yakubu Dagora? How many Hausa Fulani and Yorubas, including Sambo Dasuki himself, had been made to refund their own armed funds scandal money after people from the former eastern region like Ojiba Meto, Jim Mogodo, Peter Odele has refunded theirs after government arm twisting? How much has Olufale, and this is important for even for today, how much has Olufale, Body George, Sambo Dasuki, Ahmadu Ali, Shinkapi, Yakati, and so on and so forth, refunded after people from the eastern region had been forcefully made to refund theirs? None. Look at them. Even then, I was even fighting for a pop leader. Nnamdi Kanu that killed nobody is in detention after being granted bail by a court of competent jurisdiction. He's still being detained while the Boko Haram spokesman, Konduga, that murdered hundreds of people and many other Boko Haram members has been set free by the Buhari's administration. This Konduga is Ali Konduga, the one we mentioned earlier, you know, the namesake of that terrorist in the Senate, that is the chairman of Senate Committee on Army. That is Senator Alin Dume, the terrorist himself. Look at it. That's his namesake that I mentioned here. Other Boko Haram members have been set free by the Buhari's administration, while Buhari paying a yet unmentioned amount of money that must have run into billions to the Boko Haram cells in the so-called swap deal of the Chibok girls. These were the type of gifts. These were the type of these pimples I feel all over my body. That is a reflection of how I felt earlier when Abiola's demise occurred. I look at the people, most honest and helpless Nigerians who had paid too great a price for the confusion, extortions, and evil maneuvers of their statocratic, sanguinary, and vicious and salacious leaders of their country, Nigeria, who in their quest to satiate their ravenous appetite like winter wolf, they remain shameless as a new status in the raid of the resources of their fatherland, of their so-called fatherland. Their subjects, like the Lazarus in tent and chloroform, while they, the leaders, indulge in their hedonistic, indolent, and inglorious lifestyles, bringing the hopes and aspirations of their people to a harried end as engineered by their Western countries' collaborators. Those circumstances spurred me into investigating the process and raising the earth of Abiola's death, which might as well help in breaking the iron curtain that covered the helpless people and perhaps set them free. Abiola's demands, which I eventually traced to his reparation crusade, an epic titanic battle that saw me embark on a revolution of the heavenly sphere, so to say, and terrestrial as well as my battle that saw me embark on a revolution of the heavenly sphere, so to say, and terrestrial as well, and my eyes was opened into the secret things of the deity called God and the very elusive element called Lucifer. As carnal and as human as I was, I developed and progressed to a level where I was able to set trap for the fallen angel Lucifer, and the mighty Lucifer, sealed wisdom, fell into the trap of a mere mortal man like myself. That was how I was able to unveil the identity of the supreme Antichrist. And their worldwide underground government, much more powerful than the physical government of the whole world on earth. They virtually control almost all the governments of the world. That shadowy figure, always blocking behind the iron curtain of negative world events, frequent occurrences, that was responsible for the 9/11 attack. Also responsible for the kidnap of the Chibok girls is none other than Bill Clinton, former American president, the man behind the mask. I've treated the issue of the Antichrist, the supreme Antichrist. Clinton is the dragon. I told you, the supreme Antichrist is the Chinese president, Jinping. This is the dragon dragging the whole humanity onto destruction, that will give his power to the beast out of the sea. The beast out of the sea is the supreme Antichrist. And that beast out of the sea is Xi Jinping, the president of China. Beast out of the sea means beast out of the most populous area of the world. That is what it means. Look at all the whole people mentioned anywhere negative events are happening in the world. All those people associated with the Democrat Party of America and Bill Clinton. Now, still decoding, Bill Clinton, Bin Laden, and the then President George Bush. This is the subheading. When Gaddafi of Libya was about to be toppled, and Tony Blair of Britain went to visit Gaddafi, and this is very, very important. They are the same people who murdered Gaddafi of Libya. When Gaddafi of Libya was about to be toppled, and Tony Blair of Britain went to visit Gaddafi, who asked him whether he supported terrorism. Tony Blair promised to speak to people at the top of their evil underground empire and urged Gaddafi to keep the line open, probably to call and force him to flee Libya and avoid an ungrateful end. Whom did Tony Blair seek permission from? Of course, from Hillary Clinton. Who created Al-Qaeda in the first place? Bill Clinton. He was the one that trained Bin Laden and supported him. When President Bush was taken over from him, he told President Bush that his greatest regret was his inability to freeze Bin Laden during his presidency. How can he freeze what he created? Science Telegraph of the Sunday Telegraph of September 18, 2016 did an interesting revealing numerology of the number 11 as it relates to the 9/11 attack on America. This is from the Telegraph magazine in Nigeria. Attack on Nigeria, Sunday Telegraph, It quoted the New Telegraph paper owned by or something like that. So this one is the Sunday edition of it. It quoted a special report carried out by the International Time magazine of August 12, 2012 that emphatically stated, and I'm quoting from that magazine, from the Time magazine, 9 months before 9/11, the U.S. had a bold plan to attack Al-Qaeda. It wasn't carried out until the towers fell. This was pages 24 to 37 of the same edition, told the whole story of how on the first week of January 2001, the White House debated taking the fight to Al-Qaeda because of their previous attacks. But by the time they decided, it was too late. Why the then President George Bush did not immediately take the fight to Bin Laden Al-Qaeda on assumption of office. This is the subheading of my decode. And I'm going down. The Bush administration, by January of 2001 debate on taking the war to Al-Qaeda was as fresh to power as a new brand vehicle that is still wrapped in cellophane and does not actually know exactly where the shoes pinches as regards the depth of terrorist targets to be attacked. That is very much well understood by the regime of his predecessor, who actually would have done the attacking himself or have a blueprint for the attack as a major handover document to the succeeding administration and emphasize on action being taken immediately, as his blueprint for attack would have detailed the importance of the need to attack Al-Qaeda. But did he do that? Of course, he never did, only to claim that he made several attempts to kill him. The Time magazine story of 12 August 2002 that emphatically stated that 9 months before 9/11, the U.S. had a bold plan to attack Al-Qaeda. It wasn't carried out until the Tower fell, end of quote. And also wrote about the White House debate of first week of January 2001 of taking the war to Al-Qaeda because of the previous attack was not as straight as it appears. Like I stated earlier, the imperatively detailed conviction of documenting all previous attacks carried out against America by Bin Laden Al-Qaeda, and they must need to go after him, was never emphasized upon by the outgoing administration of Bill Clinton. But in order to protect Bin Laden, knowing fully well that the incoming President Bush does not know anything deep about the activities of Al-Qaeda and will rely on information about that from Bill Clinton directly or through his handover note, and then through the security chiefs he inherited from the outgoing Clinton's administration before he can appoint replacement for them if he does not trust their efficiency. Bill Clinton planted those he left behind, members of the court of the New World Order, who deceived the new and fresh government of George Bush into believing that his major leading security challenges then were Saddam Hussein and Iraq, missile defense, and so on and so forth, not Bin Laden and Al-Qaeda. Because even then, the 9/11 attack had already gone far in planned during Bill Clinton's stay at the White House, which was why and how they got all the necessary classified information that aided the successful execution of the 9/11 attack. And the timing of the attack, September 11, 2001, was the most vulnerable for the fairly new President Bush, who may have made new appointments to replace some of the old hands whom themselves does not know much about Al-Qaeda's activity, that still relies on their immediate predecessors, and when the attack came, they virtually went scot-free, even unsuspected, and cannot be called back or offered any useful information they know about as most of them are involved. Lack of depth knowledge of Bin Laden and Al-Qaeda on the part of President Bush and his new security chiefs was how Bill Clinton and his gang escaped suspicious that it's only one part of the game they played, and rather led Bush blood boiling to go after Saddam Hussein, who posed no threat then either against America or even the world at that time. For instance, why did Mr. Paul Wolfowitz, the American Deputy Defense Secretary then, and others like him, led the newly sworn-in President George Bush to believe that Saddam Hussein was his major problem? Who asked them to do that, knowing that at that particular point in time, the new president does not have any choice then other than to trust and obey them as security experts, trusting that every one of them, including his predecessor Bill Clinton, like him, had burning desire and totally committed to making America greater, not realizing even then that the course of the American cruise ship had changed course, altered the founding principles of the great forebears of America, who built a nation in God we trust, and liberty to all men of goodwill, and followed the destination of the Nigerian ship course that changed course long before the American state ship followed her on her destructive, damnable journey of no return and everlasting darkness. Those were the problems the then President Bush experienced to a lesser degree because it was still covered not yet known to many of the underground government within the American same physical government. That is what the Republican presidential candidate Donald Trump is battling with presently, that people did not appear to understand him, but rather sees him as a threat to the world when the man is very sane and possesses what it takes to start recovering the conscience of America from the hands of the demon-possessed Democratic Party of Nigeria of America and all their previous leadership in recent decades, and their today aspiring candidates Hillary Clinton, and apt description of the devil manifesting as an angel of light, that even if she wins the presidential election, must not be allowed to become the president of America, but rather she should be prosecuted for her crimes against humanity. Now look at it. The connection of the Saudi Arabia government. For 8 years, Bill Clinton served as U.S. president. He had first-hand record of all his activities, or rather, all the activities, because Bin Laden was only carrying out Clinton's order indirectly because, and this is very important, on how Clinton concealed his track successfully, because all Clinton's underground dealings and his New World Order gang are rooted through the government of Saudi Arabia. That is the most important revelation in this piece. The head of the serpent is deeply buried in the heart of the Saudi Arabia government. If one wants to uncover the evil deeds of the members of the New World Order, don't look for their physical organization, as it doesn't exist, except when they come occasionally, like the recent gathering at the Rockefeller Plaza to celebrate the 70th birthday of their king, Bill Clinton. They don't have a physical face tattoo you can point at. Only very few of their leaders know their human face that coordinates their worldwide empire, and that is the Saudi Arabia government. I will pause here. This is where you will know that IPOP don't know anything about Biafra and the system that is going on in Nigeria. This thing they did with the Saudi Arabian government is exactly what they duplicated in Nigeria. The actual danger to Nigeria is not the Fulani, it is the Yorubas. Everything that they are doing is rooted through the Yorubas. That is what you don't know. Exactly, that is what is happening. The danger in Nigeria are not the Fulani, they are the Yorubas. They are the stabilization. They are the things that they are using to gradually until they destroy everybody. They are in complete alliance. But they don't know it, and that's the people now they call it partnership. That is why Nigerian problem remains that these Fulanese become like they are mighty gods because of the word subtle acquiescence and support of Janus. Double-faced Janus, that is the Yoruba. That is exactly what is happening. So back to what I said. Cross-check all the global activities of the Saudi Arabia government, including their role in the 9/11 attack, including sponsors of terror groups, causing instability in government all over the world, dividing people religiously, living among their so-called fellow Muslim faithful. These are the handwork of the members of the New World Order, headed by the Clinton. Just go and cross-check, and you will confirm exactly what I'm saying. Headed by Bill Clinton. They were behind all the illegal oil racketing and bunkering going on in Nigeria, especially in the past, to maintain the lies that Saudi Arabia was the biggest oil producing nation of the world. Lies. Nigeria was until they stole Bakassi Peninsula. Before then, the front of Saudi Arabia, being the biggest oil producing nation, was maintained through illegal bunkering and trafficking in oil, as Nigeria produces both her own shares and that of Saudi Arabia illegally, and unknown to many until I blew the lid off in several writings in the past, and most recently through funding contribution in an international radio forum, that is Radio Biafra. President Saudi Arabia claimed they have rebased their economy from oil and sacked most of their oil ships who knows the truth about their past dealing. For 8 years, Clinton did not go after Bin Laden, even when he had several opportunities to take him, as he admitted in Long Island in 1996, the very island that symbolizes Bakassi and the coded Green Tree Agreement they used to steal it, but later denied what he said. As far back as 1996, Bill Clinton, as the executive president of America, had all the security reports from American intelligence service that clearly shows them that Osama bin Laden was a ringleader of Al-Qaeda after Saudi Arabia supposedly ejected him ejected bin Laden, and he took up residence in Sudan. Clinton did not go after him, then rationalizing his action that he told them that bin Laden was only a terrorist financer or sympathizer and not a ringleader, and also not very sure whether he had committed any crime against America. Even when in October 2000, before he left office, when USS Cole was bombed in Yemen, with clear findings from both the CIA and the FBI that connected bin Laden to the act, did Bill Clinton act against bin Laden before he left office? The answer is what? No. Rather, he suppressed the security report on bin Laden so that he cannot go after him, even when he had him on a platter of gold when he took up residence in Sudan, and the Sudanese government were more than ever willing to hand him over to America. Did Bill Clinton ever took that opportunity? Even when security investigations and intelligence services were pointing out to the U.S. government on training camp bin Laden was likely to visit in Afghanistan, one after the other, did Bill Clinton send in the American Special Forces to track him down on those camps? He never did, because it will implicate him, which brings the issue of Osama's connection to the whole episode. Why Osama bin Laden did not spill the beans on what he knew about 9/11 attack and the real reason why President Barack Obama assassinated him. Osama bin Laden did not spill the beans on what he knew about 9/11 attack because of the hold Clinton had on him through the real face of the organization, probably unknown to Osama bin Laden until he died, though he may have suspected something was amiss. That hold was Saudi Arabian government. That was why he played along, knowing his safety was guaranteed. They were the ones who indirectly arranged a safe haven for him in Pakistan, Abu Dhabi, where President Barack Obama, acting on orders from Bill Clinton, not as American President, murdered Sheikh Osama bin Laden on May 1, 2011. Yes, Osama bin Laden was murdered, and President Barack Obama must go in for that murder. Osama bin Laden was not assassinated because he was the mastermind of the 9/11 attack on America, which he was not, even though Barack Obama used the position of American president to justify and cover his evil act of Osama's demise as being in Americans' interest. Exactly the same manner Olusegun Obasanjo used the position of Nigerian presidency to steal away Bakassi Peninsula to this same occult group, pretending it to be acting in the interest of the country. He was the president then. You see what I mean? A diabolical movement clothed in state power. Purporting to be acting for the state, he puts on his clothes, while in reality is acting for an entirely different interest, diametrically opposed to the actual interest of the clothes they are wearing. You see what I mean about Nigerian and American stateship changing course, same gang, same spirit, same plot, meaning emanating from the same source. Obasanjo and Obama, President Barack Obama, did not kill Osama bin Laden because of the interest of the American government he appears to represent, but rather murdered him to cover the involvement of the Bill Clinton's New World Order movement, which obviously was beginning to dawn on him in the aftermath of report he was receiving about the 9/11 attack that would have made bin Laden spill the bean if he was captured alive or faced trial. It is an internationally accepted norm that an accused person is presumed innocent until proven otherwise. Then why did Barack Obama, hiding under the U.S. presidency, order as a first and last choice to the killer squad he sent to Pakistan to kill bin Laden instead of capturing him alive, when other opportunities to do so existed but never exploited? And this is very, very important. This should be important to the world. It's a question you have to answer. How was the decision to murder Sheikh Osama bin Laden arrived at instead of getting him alive that would have yielded positive revelations and information that would have been used to defeat the present Hydra-headed terrorists as worldwide, and even help America's security agencies to be able to identify modes in different departments of America's establishment for leaked classified information that enabled the group to successfully carry out the 9/11 attacks on America? Look at it. First instance, Barack Obama ordered his assassination instead of getting him alive to really get information on how the 9/11 attack was plotted and get his accomplices. He never wanted, because it will implicate Bill Clinton and all of them. So that was why the first and last option was to kill him, murder him. Still continuing with my decode. President Barack Obama is still in office. He should be made to bring out the record of the security briefings and meetings that opted for murder of bin Laden instead of taking him alive. Barack Obama should face charges of the murder of Osama bin Laden. That was done, but he have left office. President Barack Obama did not create Al-Qaeda. Bill Clinton did. Bill Clinton and co did. But he is as much guilty as the people that created the evil organization, because he had used the evil outfit to commit crimes against humanity all over the world. Just as President Muhammad Buhari did not create the Boko Haram outfit, Bill Clinton and Olusegun Obasanjo did. But he is guilty as those who created the evil outfit, because he did not only use the outfit to rise to power, but had used them and is still using the Boko Haram outfit to commit crime against humanity in the murder of thousands of innocent people of Nigeria. President Obama's speech on Osama bin Laden's death on television on May 1, 2011, the day Osama bin Laden was killed in Abbottabad, Pakistan, entitled the indivisibility nature of the United States is worthy of emulation. Reached in part, and I'm quoting him. And tonight, let us think back to the sense of unity that prevailed on 9/11, that prevailed on 9/11. I know that it has at times frayed. Yet, to that achievement is a testament to the greatness of our country and the determination of the American people. Let us remember that we can do this thing not just because of wealth or power, but because of who we are, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. End of quote. Paraphrasing Obama's speech above on what needs to be done now. What is it you're going to do? I'm paraphrasing his speech. And tonight, let us think back to the sense of unity that prevailed on 9/11. I know that it has at times frayed. Yet, to that achievement, killing of Osama bin Laden is a testament to the greatness of our country and the determination of the American people to know the truth about those who plotted and executed that evil act on humanity and bring them to justice. Remember that we can do these things not just because of wealth or power, but because of who we are, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. That's the end of my paraphrasing. At this 15-year anniversary, and I told you this was decoded in 2016, when it was when the occasion was 15 years old. So I'm still saying what I wrote then. At this 15-year anniversary of 9/11 that killed over 3,000 people with more than 6,000 people wounded, liberty and justice for all is on prayer today. If America will still endure as the actual perpetrators of that deadly act against humanity are brought to book, including Obama for the murder of bin Laden. Osama bin Laden's son, Hamza bin Laden, do not need to act like a terrorist to avenge his father's death, as he has vowed to continue the global growth fight against the United States of America. All he needed to do is to take President Barack Obama and the American government to the International Criminal Court and charge them for the unlawful murder of his father, Osama bin Laden, in order to clear his father's name and demand for hefty compensation for Obama's assassination of the father's character. For Obama's assassination of the father's character, of course, Barack Obama will be jailed for the murder of Osama bin Laden. Why 9/11 victims and Chibok girls kidnapped victims must sue American government now? Even all these people that are killed by Boko Haram, we have to include them. All these girls they kidnapped in Chibok and others, they have to start an international movement somewhere to sue the American government for their demise. This involvement of President Barack Obama with the court of the New World Order was the reason he said U.S. Congress made a mistake by overriding his veto power and pushing through a bill that allows legal action against Saudi Arabia over 9/11 attacks, exactly wearing the clothes and the office of the President of America, pretending to be acting in the interest of America by claiming that the bill would set a dangerous precedent for individuals around the world to sue the U.S. government. But its real intent was to share the involvement of the members of the court of the New World Order, led by Bill Clinton, who were the actual masterminds of the evil plot, using Saudi Arabia as cover. The U.S. Congress vote on Wednesday, the 28th of September 2016, was the first time President Barack Obama's veto power was overruled by Congress. Their agents occupied all strategic positions in U.S. government as of today. That is the reason one of their very strategic agents, the current CIA Director John Brennan, aligned himself with President Barack Obama's position on the bill, saying that the bill carried grave implications for national unity, adding that the downside is potentially huge. That was what John Brennan said, and that is why it's not easy to track them when you see in the American security forces. You think when you remove the head, the deputy is the same man. No, they have planted their agent even up to 4 successive ranks in line. So when you remove the first one, the second one is still the agent. You remove that one, the third one is still they are more there. So they have penetrated and really pinned down their presence in the American security apparatus that it's not easy to dismantle them. How can you go in an organization or in a security apparatus and you sack four successive ranking officers in the order of their succession? It's not possible. But that is what they do. They integrated themselves up to that level. That is the problem they're having in America today. That's the problem they're having in America. Very serious one. So still continuing. The Justice Against Sponsors of Terrorism, that is JASTA, legislation opens the door for victims' family to sue any member of the Saudi government suspected of playing a role in the 9/11 attack. 15 of the 19 hijackers were Saudi nationals. Reacting to the congressional vote on Wednesday, Barack Obama told CNN, and I'm quoting him, "It's a dangerous president, and it is an example of why sometimes you have to do what is hard." End of quote. What is hard President Barack Obama did was the murder of bin Laden. He may well become the first president of America that will finish his tenure and move straight to prison because of his nefarious acts as president. Between Obama and members of the Congress, who possess the interest of America more, that vote against Obama's veto power by Congress is the major evidence that confirms what I have been revealing about America under the Democratic Party. The same CIA Director John Brennan was the one U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry was reading all their operational strategy for implementation against the Biafran agitators in the coded speech John Kerry delivered in Sokoto State, charged Brennan, meaning operational orders for implementation against Biafran from CIA Director John Brennan on Tuesday, the 23rd of August 2016. This is the speech that will send both John Brennan and John Kerry. It must send all of them to prison, and Obama. As long as I'm alive, they will face International Criminal Court. And if they don't dismantle this that jihad they have planted in Nigeria in the form of using the Fulanis as a cover, any moment they are slaughtered in Biafra land, former Eastern region, even now, including the people of Benue, the blast, the whole blast all over the world, it is time for action. There will be bloodshed in all the whole capitals of this world. Unless they call it up, they think it's a joke. It has started and they will see. Still continuing. What must be done to know the truth about 9/11 and the kidnap of the Chibok girls? What must be done to know the truth about the 9/11 and the kidnap of the Chibok girls? Foremost, there must be an open and in-depth investigation of the role Saudi Arabia government and their king, King Salman bin Abdulaziz Al Saud, played in the 9/11 terrorist attack. Not to be handled by the present director of CIA or FBI, but selected apt investigators that must not compromise on the truth. Not even under the incumbent President Barack Obama, the investigation will also cover Bill Clinton's era. Secondly, families of the victims of the 9/11 attack should sue the Saudi Arabia government directly for sponsoring and masterminding the 9/11 attack. Thirdly, the parents and families of the kidnapped Chibok girls and families of the victims of Boko Haram attacks must sue the American government, Barack Obama, CIA Advert, and its director, also John Kerry, Hillary Clinton, John Campbell, Olusegun Obasanjo, Muhammadu Buhari, and others for creating and sponsoring Boko Haram, which they used to commit inhuman atrocities that led to the death of their loved ones. When that starts, Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton faces will appear very clearly, and also Obasanjo's face in what in the act they committed. And this time around, it includes the victims of the Fulani herdsmen. They have to sue the American government because they are the sponsors of that particular terrorism that is happening in Nigeria. Now, second part of my published write-up on 9/11 in 2001. When it occurred, like I told you, a lot of local journals then published my write-up on what I wrote then when that incident occurred. Now, this is the second part of my write-up that was published in 2001. Finally, on the 9/11 attack on America, I had already produced the first part of my published write-up on that dastardly act way back in 2001. The second part of the same article, published by the then web-making and biggest-selling magazine in Lagos then, New Treasure Magazine, of October 29, 2001, is quite revealing and is being reproduced verbatim below for the world to judge with the benefit of hindsight. I had written then as follows, and I'm quoting from that particular magazine what I wrote at that particular time. And what I wrote at that particular time is the events that are occurring today. I wrote as follows: Satan has dressed up his horse of 11th-hour negative intellectual extremists. The earth has come to the end of its traveling, and the sun-clothed woman of Revelation 12:1 has brought forth the precious fruit. What is the precious fruit? The man-child. God has also raised up his positive fundamental intellectual extremists. And what is that? The man-child. Born on an 11th day, the 11th-hour man for an 11th-day tragedy, 11th-hour messenger, reference, workers in the vineyard of Matthew 26. Because after the 11th hour is midnight, meaning apocalypse. I am the positive version of God's fundamental intellectual extremist, a terrorist to the kingdom of darkness that is needed not only to counterbalance the intellectual progress of negative forces, but to dismiss their threats by exposing them and point the right way for children of God to do what? To return to Zion. That's my mission. I'm here. Who did it and why? I plead we purge ourselves of any antiquated feelings in respect of some of the names I will mention. God is no respecter of person. We should not think theoretically, but analytically by wearing clothes to my declaration, dispassionately observing the past and the present activities of those mentioned and the bubble will burst. All ambiguities will now be removed as the jigsaw puzzle is unraveled. The devil most often appears as an angel of light, which is why people are always deceived. I'm talking about the 9/11. Still going further, and this is where we are presently. The scientific metaphysical understanding of the earth in most recent times have changed from the conception of a world spreading out to terminate in a bang to that of an implosion, as in spreading in to end in a whimper. Yet they refuse to understand that, auspicious as it may appear, it is only possible because the Earth planet is animated. I've told you there's nothing with the Earth planet. What is wrong is what the system of the world, the Earth planet itself have no problem, but it is the system of the world, It's animated. It feels like I feed. As you feed, that is how it feeds. And what does it feed on? It feeds on the blood of innocent people. I've dealt with this before in my past messages. So the scientific metaphysical understanding of the earth in most recent times have changed from the conception of a world spreading out to terminate in a bang to that of an implosion, as in spreading into end in a whimper. Yet they refuse to understand that, auspicious as it may appear, it is only possible because the earth planet is animated. Yet the way to end is God's spread out way in the Bible, which are what? Collapse of global economy. That is coming. We're almost in it. collapse of what? Global economy, leading to a unified currency, ecumenism, leading into rapture or translation of the elect of God, which is almost at hand. One world government to be headed by the Antichrist, and the forced return to economic prosperity, and finally collapse of the monetary system, leading to Armageddon. We are into the dispensation of this collapse of the monetary system. That is where we are heading in immediately. Still quoting my write-up, the realization of an implosion involving an animated Earth is responsible for the vogue of globalization that has turned the world into a global village, which will continue until the world becomes a global room. Do you know why? Because of diminishing resources of the Earth planet. Orderly ruling, which only a spreading, disorderly ruling, could feed the animated Earth at this point in time. Can't you see why these things are happening? It is the handwork of the convenance of the New World Order, meaning one world government to be headed by the Supreme Antichrist. That is it. Now, the motive for the bomb attack, all that they needed, very important reward to hear, the motive, all that they needed was an event that will unite the world people together to be led by the Antichrist as a result of his appetite. And that event has occurred, which is the collapse of the global economy. That was what I wrote then. It has not occurred. Some actions were suspended. Some actions were suspended, so the reaction did not come. You understand me? So that collapse of global economy is what we are presently heading into now. You see? And that event has occurred, which is the collapse of the global economy. This has been achieved by the terrorist attack on American landmark on September 11, which was triggered up by still unfolding events in Nigeria. It is Nigerian collapse that will trigger it. It is keyed immediately into the immediate disintegration of the country. That is what will trigger off the monetary collapse, the financial collapse. Events will be keyed in to trigger it. So any collapse of the world economy will be tied to the events that are actually happening in Nigeria. Look at it, 2001, that was when this thing was written, that I'm reading to you. On American landmark on September 11, which was triggered up by still unfolding events in Nigeria, which used to be the headquarters of Satan, that has now shifted to the United States of America. America and Nigeria, two eagle nations. So what is happening in America today is an offshoot of what is happening in Nigeria, which was triggered off by the traverse and the eventual demise of the late MKO Abiola, occasioned by June 12th election imbroglio, which they have re-engineered in the election that brought in President Bush in order to create credibility problem for him, which they have succeeded in doing for futuristic purposes. They are responsible for the religious crisis we have all over the world, the Antichrist and his cohorts. The factors that will bring them in are: 1, complete and total collapse of world economy, and we are into it. 2, apostasy. People will go away from the faith. That is why when you go to IPOP, you know, they don't care about Jesus again. The white people, this covenant of the New World Order, they try to tell you that Jesus never existed, that Jesus was false, that the story of Jesus is not there. And they call him, instead of calling him Jesus, they are calling him Yehoshua and all sort of rubbish. They're calling our Lord Jesus Christ, instead of calling him the Lord Jesus Christ, that is actually his name, which is God. So apostasy is already what is taking place. When you come to our land, when you come to Biafran land, when it pertains to Biafran land, IPOP, under Nnamdi Kanu, I told you, he's the apostate leader that have led the children of Biafra astray. So they are already in apostasy, falling away from the faith. Look at all their churches. What are they preaching? Prosperity, financial prosperity, instead of saving people. So they are both falling away from the faith. That is why in Nigeria today, no matter whatever happens, you see the priests complain? None of them talks about what is happening. Because of what? Apostasy. They already derived from the faith. What is number 3? Moral decadence, religious threat of war and nuclear disasters, and so on and so forth. and look at it. These things are exactly where we are today. Still reading what I wrote in 2001. These events will herald the entrance and acceptance of the Antichrist by the people of the world. He will appear genuine and gentle initially, which is why the world will be deceived. The world should not be shocked when they start hearing names like Bill Gates, but I will mention 3 names, out of which I want the last 2 to be investigated of their past and present activities. Don't call me a crazy weirdo, because I will give incontrovertible evidences to prove my points. That was in 2001. I will not, instead of 3 names, I mentioned 2 for reasons that I know best. 1, the man I refer to as the vehicle of the Antichrist, the Roman Catholic Pontiff, Pope John Paul II. It's late already. The second person is what? Bill Clinton of America. The Antichrist is neither millionaire Samuel Lee nor Lord Maitreya, all of which are the creations of the evil men. Investigate their activities, these 2 people that I mentioned, and you will be shocked. Cross-check with the historical and futuristic prophecies of the Bible. My Facebook, published February 1999, entitled Shining the Light Down from Above as the Hero and the Heroine Go Home, reviewed by the Vanguard newspaper of May 13, 1999, and Hallmark newspaper of September 12, 1999. Anything I do, I give you references. So when you go to all these things, you see the review of the book, and actually confirm that that it was written in 1999. My letter to ex-President Bill Clinton, written on December 1, 2000, while he was still serving. That's another explosive document that will come, but not now. Letter to the world on February 19, 2000, and the other face of Janus, written on July 27, 2001, serialized by the National Interest newspaper. They were all communicated to ex-President Bill Clinton while still in office through the American Embassy via Red Star Express Service Tracking Number 0854136 on December 23, 2000, excluding the other face of Janus. All these explosive documents are sent it to him while he was still a serving president of America. All these were written in the past and contain detailed information, including the events of the attack on America, because it is too late for them to change their plan. Credible church leaders like Bishop Michael Okonkwo were sent copies on 12/12/2000 through Red Star Express Courier Service Tracking Number 0909995. Also, Pastor Tunde Bakare on 21/12/2000 through Red Star Express Courier Service Tracking Number 09909996. Pastor I.S. James of Glory Land Ministry and other organizations and embassies, and so on and so forth. I sent copies to all of them. I will be delighted, I wrote then, and I still need it up to now. I will be delighted to have sponsors in order to make it more available to the people, because they contain detailed, in-depth information on all these developments and all others to come. I needed people, not only for me to make some money, because all these things I've been doing, there have been no payback. I've been doing it from the sweat of what I have garnered all my life, you know. I use it to sponsor myself. It's time for me to make some money. Not only that, to make quantum and quality information available to the people in this critical time that they need this information to actually understand the present truth of what is happening and prepare themselves to extricate themselves from this problem. If not, horrendous times are coming. Horrendous times are coming, especially in the year 2020 that we are going to enter. We are going to see the collapse of the monetary system. It's coming. Perplexities will come all over the world. Delusions, you know. People will be running scatter, you know, to look for a place of safety. Bewilderment, they will not understand exactly what is happening. And we are stepping right inside it. So it's very, very important I get sponsors so that all these things that I have written can actually be made available to the people of the world. Because they are first-class, in-depth documents. You cannot get anything. Anything I preach, I originated it. So you can't say I'm copying from anybody. And most of these things are things I've done in the past. That is why I bring them and I read them exactly as I have written them, for you to see the precise nature of what I'm writing and use it to situate and judge by the positions of what is actually happening today, so that you can compare them. And that is why I give you references to everything that I do. Every revelation I make to you, I give to you, they are just fresh baked from the oven of God, you know, original. I'm not, it's when I generate prophecies and things like that, you see them, all these so-called pastors and general overseers. They lift it up because they have followership. They go to the mountaintop and blow it up. That's what they do. It's I'm the dredger that dredge out, you know, the prophecies, you know, that they imitate, you know, and they go to the mountaintop to raise it up. So anything I give you, they are fresh baked from the oven of God. So I'm still reading, you know. I said all the targets of their attacks are symbolic that carry their message across. The hit at the World Trade Center is not a hit against America. It is a hit against the whole world, symbolizing the destruction of global economy, because the destruction of the USA economy will lead to one world currency. That was way back in 2001, and the world can best judge the outcome of the prophesied events then with future events and occurrences. What actually is the real motive for the 9/11 attack? What was their real motive, you know? 9/11 attack was an equivalent of what used to happen in Nigeria, most often, like the so-called accident involving the Bayview airline that killed many Nigerians at Lisa Village in Ogun State, which is only arranged occultic sacrifices for their king, the devil. 9/11, 9/11 is an organized buffet, a welcome party buffet for their king, who relocated from Nigeria to America, as the entrance of a king of such magnitude cannot go unnoticed without welcome. That was the motive for the 9/11 attack and nothing more. They are seeking for the unification of the world, so it must be a global event, as their target is the collapse of the global economy, hence the choice of the World Trade Center. You know, Clinton visited Nigeria then. Then what was the aftermath of that Clinton visit to Nigeria? That Clinton visit to Nigeria then marked the turning point of peaceful coexistence in accordance to the established and enshrined norm in the Constitution of the United States of America. And people should cross-check the event that had taken place in America ever since then against the backdrop of what used to happen. Go and check it. Since Clinton came back from Nigeria, it becomes to be critically important. We'll reproduce that John Kerry speech that we have been decoding, you know, because you can no longer find it in the internet. So I'm going to reproduce the whole speech that John Kerry made on that particular date. So for the record, reproduction of U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry's speech at Sokoto on August 23, 2016. United States Secretary of State Mr. John Kerry was in Sokoto on Tuesday, where he lauded the efforts of Sultan of Sokoto, Alhaji Saad Abubakar, for promoting religious tolerance and understanding among Nigerians. He also spoke on the need to build a community of tolerance for peace, progress, and political stability in Nigeria. Now, this is the extract. I'm reading it from the very beginning, you know, so that people will understand, you know, some of the decode. The decode I've done, the journal I used to interpret it is about 57-page document, you know, journal that I published them. But actually, what I have been interpreting to you is not even up to 7 pages of that magazine that I interpreted for you, because I cannot go to interpret the whole thing that I wrote in that journal because of the time factor and the space. So let me just reproduce. Let me read it. I'm coming now to read it. Now, preamble. I'm quoting John Kerry. Preamble. Good morning to all of you. Your Excellency Governor Aminu Tambuwari, Your Excellency Governor Abdulaziz Yari, Your Eminence Sultan, who was very kind to host us here today and whose leadership I particularly appreciate with respect to all the interfaith efforts, which are so important. Charles Brennan, leaders from Nigeria, religious communities, teachers, and students, thank you very much for being here. You honor me by being here, and it is my privilege to be the first Secretary of State in history to come to Sokoto. I'm very honored to be here. I want to thank Mariam for that very kind introduction and for the good work that she is doing in her community to promote social entrepreneurship and youth education and women's health. Sokoto's place in history. That is the heading of this. This is my third visit to Nigeria in the past 20 months, and I am delighted to be here. One of Nigeria's strengths is in its diversity, which grows out of the distinctive contributions and culture of the various regions. And Sokoto is the place with an extraordinary history of faith, of tolerance, and of scholarship in all its forms. And I just came from a meeting a few minutes ago in which I heard from various religious leaders and from His Eminence of the work that they are doing to try to embrace tolerance and provide opportunity for people. So that is a very special region. You don't need me to tell you that, but I want to make sure the world hears how special this region is. And it is special because the teachings of religion and ethics are prioritized right alongside the virtues of reading, writing, math, and science. Many of your former leaders actually started out as school teachers, including, of course, the inspiring Ahmadu Bello. In fact, shortly after he graduated from a teaching college, and years before he founded the university that today bears his name, Ahmadu Bello returned to his birthplace, not far from here, in Rabat, in hopes of educating his community, and at the same time, there was no school. And at that time, there was no school. So he built a thatch hut where he began instructing children in his own. So he built a thatch hut where he began instructing children in his own family how to read and write. Then he asked his young scribes to teach their friends what they had learned and to keep expanding the circles so that the number of educated citizens will continue to grow. That kind of commitment had made a huge difference in Nigeria. And I expect that Ahmadu Bello would be proud that in the country today, school attendance, literacy, and graduation rates are higher than ever before. But he wouldn't be satisfied, and you know that, because even late in his career, he declared a war on ignorance. War on ignorance is in quote. And that is a war that much of the world is still fighting every single day, way beyond Nigeria. The reason is that to some people in this world, knowledge is not a goal to be pursued, but rather it is an enemy to be destroyed. Then the next heading is impact on insurgency. Still going on. As everyone in this room well knows, in its quest to destroy knowledge, the terrorist group Boko Haram has killed more than 20,000 people, displaced more than 2 million, and plunged some 7 million Nigerians into hunger, thirst, and desperate need. On Sunday, they descended into a small village near Chibok in the middle of the night, looting every home that they saw, and then they took food and livestock before burning those homes to the ground. They killed 10 people that night and abducted 13 others, women and children, adding to the thousands of other victims, including the hundreds of girls of Chibok girls who were abducted more than 2 years ago. Boko Haram boasts of no agenda. Boko Haram boasts no agenda other than to murder teachers, bomb booths, kidnap students, rape women and girls, and slaughter innocent people, most of whom are Muslims. It has a complete and total disrespect for a life. Have you seen innocent people, most of whom are Muslims? That is a lie. He deliberately put it there just to deceive people, and this is what Nigerian leaders have subsequently been claiming, that most of the people that are murdered by Boko Haram are Muslims. It's a lie. It's Christians. You see, Boko Haram boasts no agenda other than to murder teachers, bomb booths, kidnap students, rape women and girls, and slaughter innocent people, most of whom are Muslims. It has a complete and total disrespect for life, the opposite of every religion. It has a complete nihilistic view of the world. It fears knowledge. It fears dedication. It fears tolerance. In the past 2 years, it has used more than 100 women and girls to carry out suicide attacks. They actually teach girls how to hold a bomb under their armpit so that the explosive remains steady. They show teenagers how to use swords to decapitate. We might as well ask how anyone could be brainwashed into such atrocities. But because the children are so young and because the abuse that they suffer is so great, even brave souls can be broken. This then is what Boko Haram is all about. And you know this better than I do. Not just murdering innocent people, but also transforming the most vulnerable people among us into killers of their neighbors, their own families, and even themselves. Now, under subheading, curbing extremism. Now, certainly now, Eastern Nigeria is not the only region that is plagued by violent extremism. And sadly, Boko Haram isn't the only terrorist group that we face in the world today. Earlier this year, an Islamist militant group linked to Al-Qaeda killed 30 people when they bombed a hotel in Burkina Faso. Over the first 6 months of 2016, the last resistance army abducted more than 500 people, mostly in the Central African Republic and the Democratic Republic of Congo. And just a few days ago, Al-Shabaab militants killed 15 people and injured more than 80 when they detonated an attack near an open hotel, an open market in Gakayo in Somalia. And terrorists from or inspired by Daesh have carried out vicious attacks in Europe, the Middle East, South Africa, and the United States of America. So make no mistake, we do not have to be the prisoners of this violent extremism. It can be eliminated. No one anywhere has to live or should have to live among disabled and it is able. But it isn't going to disappear on its own. And that is something that is eminent. The Sultan understands better than anybody as he preaches tolerance and brings interfaith groups together in order to do the hard work of pushing back against extremism. It takes words and it takes leadership. And it will require sustained effort from all of us, from regional, national, and subnational leaders, from the United Nations and other multinational institutions. It takes great effort by law enforcement agencies and civil society. And I want you to know today that the United States is deeply committed to this effort, including by helping our partners to be able to build counter-terrorism capacities. That is why at the State Department, we introduced a countering violent extremism strategy earlier this year, and it is why we are working so hard to implement it. Though I might add, you all are already under the leadership of the governor, and the sultans are already engaged in your own countering violent extremism efforts. Under subheading, denouncing dead-end ideologies. Still quoting John Kerry's speech. There's no question in recent months that important progress has been made, and particularly here in Nigeria over the last 6 months, the Nigerian army has rescued thousands of civilian hostages. Hundreds of Boko Haram fighters surrendered to Nigerian forces. In July. Nigerian troops captured 16 of the group's leaders who admitted that they were running out of food, that their fighters were living off roots and unripe fruits. And just last week, your army thwarted an attack in the northeast and took out more than a dozen militants in the process. The fact is that through the multinational joint task force with help from the United States, France, and the United Kingdom, Nigeria and its neighbors are steadily degrading Boko Haram's capabilities. Your country has taken back most of the territory that the terrorists had once captured, and Cameroon, Niger, and Chad, and Benin have made important contributions and enormous sacrifices in areas along Nigerian borders. But we also know that beating Boko Haram on the battlefield is only the beginning of what we need to do. As the American writer Henry David Thoreau wrote, and this is in quote, "There are 1,000 hearken at the branches of evil to only one who is striking at the root." End of quote. So we have to strike at the root cause of violent extremism to win the struggle for the future nations. Need to do more than just denounce bankrupt dead-end ideologies that the terrorists support. They also have to offer their citizens an alternative that is better, that offers hope, that actually delivers on its promises. And that's subheading, lessons learned. Now we have learned a lot about extremism in the last years. We obviously have been consumed by the fight against it since 2001, when out of the blue the attack in New York took place. People joined the attack in New York took place, which is the September 11, 2000 attack that we have dealt with. People joined, still going to John Kerry's speech. People join violent extremist groups for a number of different reasons, and some obviously do so against their will. But there are far too many who join the ranks of this organization because they have trouble finding meanings or opportunity in their daily life, because they are deeply frustrated and alienated, and because they hope groups like Boko Haram would somehow give them a sense of identity or purpose or power. We see this in every part of the world, whether we are talking about the Lake Chad Basin or the Sahel, or a village in the Middle East, or a city in Western Europe. It is the same. When people, and particularly young people, have no hope for the future and no faith in legitimate authority, when there are no outlets for people to express their concerns, then aggravation festers and those people become vulnerable to outside influence. And no one knows that better than the violent extremist group, which regularly use humiliation and marginalization and inequality and poverty and corruption or as recruitment tools. And that's forbidding war against corruption. So one of our central attacks, and almost every single religion leader I just heard in the other room talked about this tax. Has to be removed. Talked about this tax. Has to be to remove the vulnerabilities in our own position. To effectively counter violent extremism, we have to ensure that military actions is coupled with a reinforced commitment to the values this region and all of Nigeria has a long legacy of supporting. Values like integrity, good governance, education, compassion, security, and respect for human rights. Values that the terrorists don't just ignore, my friends, but values that they desecrate and try to destroy at every turn that they can. So to start with, it is essential to build and rebuild trust in government, trust in the military, trust in law enforcement community, wherever that trust has been diminished. The fight against corruption has to be a global security priority of the first order, and we, all of us, particularly those nations like mine, that have so much more than other countries, have an obligation to help those countries to avoid the downside of what happens when you are left on your own. Bribery, fraud, other forms of vulnerability, other forms of venality endangers everything that we hold dear, everything that we value. They feed organized crimes. They gnaw away at nation states. They take away the legitimacy of a nation state. They contribute to human trafficking. They discourage honest and accountable investment, and they undermine entire communities. And despite recent progress as a global community, we are collectively not yet doing nearly enough to clean up and improve governance globally. And that needs to change. We all pay for corruption, folks. We all pay for corruption. Corruption costs the global economy an estimated 2.6 trillion a year. That is $2.6 trillion that could be going towards infrastructure, towards health, towards care, towards education, food security, other initiatives, any number of areas where we know we need money to be able to make the investment that give young people that sense of future. But let's be very clear, corruption is not just a disgrace and a crime, it is also dangerous. There is nothing more demoralizing, more destructive, more disempowering to a citizen than the belief that the system is rigged against them. They believe that the system is designed to fail them, and that people in position of power, to use a dramatic term, are crooks. Crooks is in quote. That is, crooks who are embezzling the future of their own people. And that's subheading. U.S. support for Nigeria. Now, this is something that your President Buhari, understands very, very well. President Buhari was elected on a platform of clean government, and the United States strongly support the step that he is taking in order to clean government. Nigeria is already a regional leader in many ways, economically and culturally, but you can also become a model in fighting corruption and organized crime that so often goes along with it. And you have made a terrific start. A strong start at all levels of government. Already, President Buhari is working with civil societies to encourage official transparency and accountability. It is so important to restoring trust among the people. His administration has taken important steps to prevent the theft of public funds and to recover stolen assets. Last May, I joined him at the Anti-Corruption Summit in London, where he announced that Nigeria will join the Open Government Partnership, a step that will further strengthen the country's anti-crime efforts and advances institutional integrity, economic development, and citizens' engagement. Now, of course, building public trust in government also requires cooperation from law enforcement, and the military. It is understandable that in the wake of terrorist activities, some people attempted to crack down on everyone and anyone who could theoretically pose some sort of a threat. I caution against that today. Extremism cannot be defeated through repression or just creating fear. Fear instilled through repression invites not confidence, it invites contempt. It creates terrorists. Trust creates citizens. Progress in this fight against corruption is going to be a long way, is going to go a long way to bringing Nigerians closer together and creating confidence in the integrity of government institutions. And it would also unleash the enormous potential that you have for economic growth, which exists in every single part of a country. And that would obviously be good for Nigeria, good for Africa, but be a good for everybody else in the world. Any government most basic duty is to meet the needs of its people, and good accountable government just plan. Any government most basic duty is to meet the needs of its people, and good accountable government, just plain old governance, is basically the key, but it is not the end of the story. In this country, more than 60% of your population is under the age of 25 years old. So it matters to all of us whether or not these young people are able to gain access to education and jobs that will enable them to contribute to their communities in beneficial ways. Another subheading, dwindling economic fortune. We also know that the economy in this country has been hurt by the fall in oil prices and by shortages of infrastructure, especially in energy. A modern economy must have access to power. It needs ample grid capacity. That grid has to be able to deliver electricity to all parts of the country in order to keep the lights on, in order to enable a company to work, in order to build a factory, in order to let a business thrive. And it has to be supported by enough roads and bridges and rail lines and port facilities to connect producers to consumers with as little delay and expenses as possible. But a modern economy also requires investment in its people. That is the key. In schools at all levels and in programs that train and prepare graduates in order to be able to compete in the global marketplace. That is why the United States is partnering with the Nigerian government and international donors to open temporary schools and other non-formal learning centers in places where in addition to traditional schooling, displaced children are given access to meals, counseling, and other social services that empowers them to be able to learn and to be able to grow up and be full citizens. At the center of that effort is a goal that I know is shared by so many Nigerians, including President Buhari, and that is giving women and girls an equal chance to compete in the classroom and in the workplace. I was very pleased to hear about the initiative that His Eminence, the Sultan, has launched to invest in girls' education, including setting up a women's college of medicine. When women are educated and empowered, societies are more productive, more democratic, more inclusive, and far more prosperous. And that is a fact undeniable in a country, in country after country. So, my friends, improving governance and providing opportunities for all are two important pieces of the puzzle. The final piece that I want to mention today is the importance of building bridges through tolerance and acceptance, and that is another area in which Sokoto serves as a model for the region, for the country. I mentioned Ahmadu Bello at the beginning of my remark, and there is an old story that I'm sure many of you have heard one time or another. I heard His Eminence use the word a few minutes ago when we were in the meeting we were in. Shortly after Nigeria's independence, the country's first President, Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe, who had met briefly with Mr. Bello to discuss Nigeria's future and ways to overcome the deep-seated ethnic and religious divisions that existed then. And as legend has it, President Azikiwe proclaimed, in quote, "Let us not forget our differences," end of quote. And Bello countered, in quote, "No, let us understand our differences," end of quote. And that is what His Eminence said. He said, in quote, "It is by understanding our differences that we can build unity throughout Nigeria," end of quote. Then another subheading, peaceful coexistence. Equality and tolerance, justice and mercy, compassion and humility. These are values that transcend religious ethnicities and all kinds of moral codes. They are certainly in keeping with the teachings of Islam and have enriched the world for centuries. And those who will tear our communities apart, pitting one religion or one state against another, they can only be defeated by citizens unyielding commitment to unity and mutual understanding. And here I underscore, breaking the cycles of violence requires treating those who escape or defect from Boko Haram, and particularly those who were abducted against their will with sensitivity as they try to return to their old communities. Welcoming these individuals, especially women and girls, back into society safely without the threat of continued violence or discrimination and ensuring that the millions who have been displaced here in Nigeria and throughout the region, that they get the humanitarian and governmental support that they desperately need. That is the only way to move a community forward beyond the turbulence of these times. That is something that the United States is working very, very hard to support, and we will continue to work with you as you engage in this extremely important work. Another subheading, empowerment of citizens. My friends, all of these efforts fighting corruption, promoting good governance, promoting opportunity for men and women alike, showing compassion and understanding for fellow citizens even when it is difficult, all of these things will do an enormous amount to reduce the threat that is posed by violent extremism and to prevent it from re-emerging in the future. That is the way you invest in a future that is free from violence and provides you with the stability and the peace that you so desperately want. But there are also worthy efforts in their own right. It is amazing what can be accomplished when people are empowered to succeed. Consider the difference that a young man named Syed, who is here today, has made in his community. Said, thank you so much. Said, thank you so much. Said grew up in an impoverished community in northeast Nigeria. Conflict was very common in his neighborhood, and Syed came to believe that poverty was largely to blame. So he wanted to turn that around. When he turned 18 years old, he began to volunteer with a non-governmental organization that provides microloans to help women start their own businesses. Later, while studying for his undergraduate degree, he led a UNICEF team that educated youth about reproductive health and AIDS. And through his work, he developed a new understanding of the lack of trust in government, of the prevalence of corruption, and the need for transparency and accountability. He started working with the Federal Inland Revenue Service, the FIRS, leading public campaign to empower taxpayers to check on spending activities of tax officials and monitor for fraud. He spent years with the FIRS here in Sokoto, and he was honored multiple times for the mechanism that he introduced to improve fiscal transparency and openness in the tax process, and said work to address fraud and corruption continue to this very day. Not too long ago, he launched a website called, in quote, Follow Taxes, end of quote, that helps Nigerians who cannot afford a tax consultant understand how to pay what they owe and avoid being taxed under false premises. Now, certainly, Said could have chosen a lot of other things to do. He could have pursued a very different path. Others who grew up in his situation have chosen a lot of worse ways to aid their frustration. Instead, Said has dedicated his life to finding solutions, and his work has helped millions of fellow citizens. He didn't accomplish what he has done by accident. He did it with hard work, compassionate mentors, a solid education, and the help of government programs and initiatives like the Washington Mandela Fellowship, for which he was selected in 2015. Still, Sayed's story, frankly, shows us what is possible when people are given the opportunity to explore their dreams and act on their ideas. It shows what is possible when people have a stake in the community and when they are able to have confidence in their future. A citizenry that is inspired, engaged, and empowered to take on whatever challenges society confronts. That is the way it was. That is what Ahmadu Bello and many of Nigerian great leaders have worked to pursue. And the same goal should guide all the steps that we take today. That is how we will build strong, resilient communities. That is how we will pull off terrorism by its root. That is how we bring about the future that Nigerians and people everywhere deserve. And working together, the United States, Nigeria, and our international partners can make this happen. That is the end of the speech John Kerry delivered in Sokoto. You can never find it in the internet anymore. They have taken it. That is why I took the trouble to really reproduce it so that the people can evaluate it with the interpretation that we've just decoded. You know, and let me tell you how America ordered the destruction of business interests of the people of the former Eastern region. they ordered it, all these selective trials of Biafrans, you know, by Nigerian authorities. They are, you know, ordered by the Americans. We can see it in John Kerry's speech. You know, like, let me quote a little bit from what we just read. He said, I'm quoting John Kerry, we see this in every part of the world. Whether we are talking about the Lake Chad Basin or the Sahel or a village in the Middle East or a city in Western Europe, it is the same when people, and particularly young people, have no hope for the future and no faith in legitimate authority, when there are no outlets for people to express their concern, then aggravation festers and those people become vulnerable to outside influence, and no one knows that better than the violent extremist groups, which regularly use humiliation and marginalization and inequality and poverty and corruption as recruitment tools. War against corruption. So on our attacks, one of our attacks, I'm still quoting John Kerry, one of our central attacks, and almost every single religious leader just had in the other room talked about this tax, has to be to remove the vulnerabilities in our own position to effectively counter violent extremism. We have to ensure that military action is coupled with a reinforced commitment to the values this region and all of Nigeria has a long legacy of supporting, values like integrity, good governance, education, compassion, security, and respect for human rights. Values that the terrorists don't just ignore, my friend, but values that they desecrate and try to destroy at every turn that they can. So to start with, it is essential to build and rebuild trust in government, trust in the military, trust in law enforcement community, wherever that trust has been diminished. The fight against corruption has to be a global security priority of the first order, and we, all of us, particularly those nations like mine that have so much more than other countries, have an obligation to help those countries to avoid the downside of what happens when you are left on your own. Bribery, fraud, other forms of venality endangers everything that we hold dear, everything that you value. End of quote. Now, my own interpretation. It is a direct instruction to make life unbearable for the people of the former Eastern region, Biafrans. They are not to allow those people access to justice, to tighten up everywhere against them, especially in the armed forces, remove their human rights, and fill every opening with Muslims, use fraud allegations, bribery allegations, and every negative thing the federal government of Nigeria has at its disposal to deal with these people, and that America will ensure global support for their actions, as we have already seen in their speedy, in their speedily convened 71 section of the United Nations Assembly, which they did that time, So look at it, even on their own part, you see what the Americans did. That was why the FBI released list of 80 Nigerians arrested for fraud. Names list suspect. That is Daily Post of August 23, 2019. You can see it. All those people are all what? Biafran. That is what they did. They listed them out. That is what they are doing to frame them. So when you see all these selective trials, like what I told you about Spade and Osuji and all that, that was in the era of Obasanjo and all that. Replicate it with what, just opposite with what Buhari is doing. All his corruption are targeted at Biafran to humiliate them. That is the order from the Americans. And look at the story of Sid, the story of Sid that he said. Let me show you from his speech again, I said, now look at it. That speech on Sid, the young man, the story of the young man called Sid. It depicts the Igbos, the so-called young man named Sid. It's the story of rag to grace process of an Igbo man to overcome all hurdles placed on his way to succeed. You understand me? Share the peace and Igbo journey of survival, clearly mapping out the route that leads to that survival, with express order to block completely and seal permanently after the impending Holocaust whatever tiny opening that may exist for any future generation of the race to grow and work strong enough again to challenge the established status quo must be closed against them. They must be boxed in and sealed in permanently, never, never to rise again. And I'm quoting John Kerry. That is how we pull up terrorism by its root. That is how we bring about the future that Nigerians and people everywhere deserve. And working together, the United States, Nigeria, and our international partners can make this happen. End of his quote. This is the best I can do with the satanic agenda of America on Nigeria for now. You understand me? I'm going to end it here. That is what is happening. Because, like they said, look at it. If they allow the Biafrans to grow, and they overcome them. You see, the Asians have already overcome them. Look at what is happening in Japan. China has already taken over from America. So if we allow the blacks again to overcome them, which means they can become servants to blacks. So it's a question of life and they cannot allow this to happen. So you have seen the face of what happened, that they are behind the complete and total exterminations of the Biafrans. So Biafrans had better wake up. All this I've told you, I told you this document, the journalist said it's more than 50-something pages. I've only done about a few pages, not even up to 7 pages. But I will rest it here, you know, like I dedicate this to the Prime Minister of Israel too, because I told you this is a tribute to the 12 tribes of Israel. So I hand this over to the Prime Minister of Israel, His Excellency Benjamin Netanyahu, you know, my would-be friend and brother. I give this to you in a fulfillment of the last statement of the Old Testament, because we believe in Judaism. That last statement of the Old Testament is the 2 paragraphs of the Old Testament, which can be found in Malachi chapter 4, verse 5 to 6. That is the last before you come into the New Testament. And he said, "Behold, I will send you Elijah the prophet before the coming of the great and dreadful day of the Lord. And he shall turn the heart of the fathers to the children, and the heart of the children to their fathers, lest I come and smite the earth with a curse." Today, Elijah is standing before you. And that I'm handing this document over to you in fulfillment of this particular chapter. This thing is from your fathers, the Biafrans. They are your fathers. To reconcile you back to your fathers, so that together we can be reconciled to our Father, the Messiah that we are expecting to come, who is no other than our Lord Jesus Christ, who is God himself. Together we go and meet our God. So we are going to really reconvene our covenant with our fathers of old. We are going to make that covenant to be operational. And that is when I will preach the message of the relationship between the Biafrans as a whole. When I say Biafrans, I mean the Igbos and their Niger Delta brethren and all that, in relation to how they are related to the Israelites. I'm going to do that edition, and it's going to be a mind-blowing edition that will show that the people are one people. So this I dedicate to all the whole scholars, you know, men of conscience all over the world. Let it be an eye-opener that will galvanize a movement that will forever cut off the chain of slavery of the black race as we enter into the year 2020 that promised to be a catastrophic year of overthrowing of negative forces. It is a year that we have had the glorious Republic of Biafra. It is a year that will lead to the gradual arising of that man of sin, the Antichrist, who will steal the world estate by trickery. It is a year we are going to see the collapse of global economy, because this is one of the things that we have had. The Antichrist, I've already told you that the Antichrist is the Chinese president. If it is not the Chinese president, if it is not this sitting one, it means that whoever will take over from him, because the Antichrist, the beast out of the sea, represents the seat of government in China. But I'm sure it's Jinping. I told you the dragon is Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton represents America. America represents the old empire. America is already a foreign power. China has already taken over. So by 2020, we are going to see the dominance, the preeminence of China arising all over the country, all over the places. And we are going to see tribulations like have never been witnessed before. And I pray that the Lord will thunder with the voice that wake the dead. He said that when he sees the blood, that he will pass over you, you know, over his own children. So I pray that in the year 2020, the catastrophic overthrow of negative forces that we can, that we herald, you know, the end time scenario of our Lord, you know, the sequences of the end time and the manifestation, gradual manifestation of the Antichrist, that the Lord will really anoint his children and save them, you know, from the bewilderment and the total destruction that we are going to see in the year 2020. So I wish everybody well. In 2020, we are going to do very wonderful expositions. You know, Biafra will come in the year 2020. I'm not God, but that is what I suppose by the work that I'm doing. I thank God for giving me the opportunity to be able to, that enabling grace to be able to fulfill and, you know, be able to complete this marathon edition which have been ongoing for a very long time today. I really thank our Lord Jesus Christ, and I dedicate this to all scholars, all scholars, all humanity, wherever they may find. This is my legacy to you. It started from dangers of being a Nigerian to this particular edition. So I thank you for endurance. So you should go and start from dangers of being a Nigerian. All my works, they are talent, they are quality jobs, that you would, that actually shows, the tribulation that we are going, revelations of the present truth. So people need to go and study my works, and I pray that the Lord will continue to give us strength. I pray for my own self too, because nobody is sure. As I run my own race with fear and trembling of the Lord, begging the Lord to help me to make a realistic appraisal of my abilities and capabilities, and to be able to recognize my limitation, and above all, to help me not to fall. When my time is up, God, do not allow me to linger any moment. May I not be known as the man who disappointed God. When you come, my Father and my Lord, I expect that you will find me in your vineyard walking. May the Lord be with you all in Jesus' name. Thank you.